Are you a German learner who's struggling to work out when the means der, die or das? Do you remember if the cake is der, die or das Kuchen? You're struggling to work out if the flower is der Blume, die Blume or das Blume? And what about the car? Is it der, die or das Auto? Or even der, die or das Wagen? Is this really annoying you? And is it making your head spin? Here's some help. This course will show you which nouns are always or usually masculine, always or usually feminine, always or usually neuter. It will help you work out compound nouns and what happens to new nouns. I'm Angelika Davey, a native German speaker and qualified teacher, and I'm here to help you make sense of the gender jungle. And at the end of this course, you will have a far better understanding of the German articles, which in turn will help you when you learn any new grammar rules. Are you ready? Let's go!
Welcome to my office. If you were having face-to-face lessons, you would be sitting in this room with me, or possibly. If you had Skype lessons, you would probably see about roughly the same as what you can see now. But as you're having online lessons, which means you're watching videos whenever you want to and not necessarily when I'm around, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Angelika Davey and I was born in Germany. As a child in Germany, I had this idea of I wanted to grow up really quickly, move to England and make everybody in England like the German language. I also wanted to be an air hostess, a singer, a dancer, and a teacher. So some of this I actually achieved because in 1982 I moved to England and I started teaching in 1991. And since 2006 I have been teaching for myself, my own business, Angelika's German Tuition and Translation. Since then I have been busy with translating, writing my blog where you always find lots of free resources of how to improve your German. And I've written some books, including one in German about Wiltshire. Wiltshire is where I moved to and I love the area. I think it's one of the most beautiful areas in the UK. I'm sure other people will disagree with me, but I don't care. I thought it would be nice to entice Germans to come over here and spend their holidays. Just to name two things, Salisbury Cathedral, you may have heard of, and Stonehenge. Now, even if you don't know where Wiltshire is in the UK, you most likely have heard of Stonehenge. And of course, I also teach. I teach private clients, I teach groups, I have business clients, I have people which I teach at my house, I teach people at their business premises via Skype, I teach children's, I have taught children's groups in nursery schools. Actually, the youngest child I've ever taught was 3 and the oldest person I've ever taught was 80. And now I'm also teaching online on Udemy via video courses, and you're about to watch one of them. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get lots out of it. If you have got any problems or questions, please do ask me. Otherwise, all I can say is have fun.
In this video, I will tell you about the nouns which are always masculine. For example, people and jobs and animals where we have an obvious male version and a female version. So male people like der Mann, der Vater, der Onkel. Nationalities where we have a male English person, for example, or a female person. So der Engländer, der Amerikaner, for example. Male jobs, der Lehrer, der Politiker, because we also have a female version for those. And some of the animals where again we do have a male version for the animal and a female version. So this doesn't apply to all the animals. But for example, der Hund, because a female one would be die Hündin. Der Hahn, and the female version would be das Huhn or die Henne. It also applies to days, month and the seasons. So Montag, Dienstag, Mittwoch, Donnerstag, Freitag, Samstag, Sonntag, the days of the week. And the seasons, the months, Januar, Februar, März, April, Mai, Juni, Juli, August, September, October, November, Dezember, all those are masculine. The seasons, der Frühling, der Sommer, der Herbst und der Winter. Precipitation and directions. A few examples, der Schnee, der Wind, der Regen, der Nebel, der Hagel, and there are more. And the directions, der Norden, der Süden, der Westen, der Osten. The same applies to Nordwesten or Südosten or any of the other ones. Names of cars. A couple of examples here, der BMW, der VW, der Ford, der Mercedes, der Rover or Rover. Add on to whichever you want to add. Words ending in ismus, and that will be the same as in English, ism. As an example, der Egoismus, which is egoism, Optimismus, Journalismus, Kommunismus. Other words would be Alkoholismus, Anglizismus, Antisemitismus, Fanatismus, Feminismus, Kannibalismus, Nationalismus, Pessimismus, Radikalismus, Realismus, Vandalismus, Zynismus, and there are probably loads more which I can't think of at the moment. The times of the day, technically speaking, shouldn't be on this video because there is one which isn't masculine. But there aren't that many times of the day, so it's well worth remembering. We've got der Morgen, der Vormittag, der Mittag, der Nachmittag, der Abend, and the only difference is die Nacht. And the last one is also one that shouldn't really be on this video, but you can safely learn that all alcoholic drinks are masculine, as long as you remember the one exception, which is das Bier. But der Wein, der Champagner, der Vodka, der Gin, everything else is masculine, so it's well worth remembering. In the next video we talk about those which are usually masculine. In this video I will tell you about nouns which are usually masculine. It does mean that there are some exceptions when you find that a noun is actually feminine or neuter despite the rule. But it is always a safe guess. If you're really stuck, guess for masculine if you come across the following rules. Words ending in ent. Der Student, der Patient. Other words could be der Agent, der Assistent, der Bundespräsident. Those words are actually male people. And we've already had that in the other video, that male people are always der. There are some other words as well, Moment, der Zement, der Cent. But there are also exceptions, das Argument, das Dokument, das Element, das Instrument. Nouns ending in er. And again we have some male people already, Arbeiter, Abnehmer, Absender, Bewerber. Other words could be Ableger, Anspitzer, Becher, Computer, Eimer, Koffer, Körper, Meter, Locher, Wecker. A lot of those are names of objects that perform actions, like the computer or the alarm clock. Exceptions could be das Abenteuer, die Feier, das Fenster, die Mauer, die Mutter, das Wasser, die Wimper. Also beware, we're not talking about plurals here, but plurals can also end in er, like die Bücher, die Häuser, die Kleider, but those are plural, and at the moment we're only looking at singular words. Nouns ending in ig. Der Essig, der Honig, der Käfig, König, but it's das Reisig. And nouns ending in or. Der Alligator, Autor, Chor, Faktor, Flugsimulator, Generator, Horror, Korridor, Meteor, Moderator, Monitor, Motor, Reaktor, Tenor. Again, some of these are male people, and therefore they're automatically masculine. Some exceptions: das Dekor, das Moor, das Labor. Nouns ending in ich. Der Anstrich, der Aufstrich, der Bereich, der Huflattich, Pfirsich, Rettich, Sittich, Streich, Strich, Teppich, Teich, but it's das Reich. Nouns ending in ist. Der Artist, Egoist, Idealist, Journalist, Mist, Optimist, Pazifist, Polizist, Spezialist, Terrorist, Tourist, Zwist, but it's die Frist und die Hinterlist. Nouns ending in ling. Der Lehrling, Liebling, Mischling, Neuling, Schädling, Frühling, Schmetterling, Zwilling. Exceptions are those which come from the English, like das Bowling, das Feeling, das Recycling, das Wrestling. Currency and most rivers outside Germany. So der Euro, der Dollar, der Cent. But the exception would be das britische Pfund, for example. Now der Cent we already had earlier on, with nouns ending in ent. So again there are two reasons why cent is masculine. Couple of rivers, der Nil, Mississippi, Amazonas, but the Thames is die Themse. So let's look at nouns which are always feminine. Female people, jobs and animals. This is the opposite slide to the one which is always masculine. We have female people and jobs now, so die Frau, die Mutter, die Tante. We have the nationalities, die Engländerin, die Amerikanerin, the jobs, die Lehrerin, die Politikerin, the animals, die Katze, die Henne. Identical to the male version. Well, opposite obviously, because these are all female. Except there is one exception, but really it is only the one. It stumps everybody because it's the word for girl, and a girl is clearly female. But it is das Mädchen. Well worth remembering because everything else is feminine. And when you watch the video about the neuter nouns, you know why Mädchen is das. But it's the only one. All other female nouns relating to female people are feminine. Names of motorbikes and ships and planes, like the Yamaha, Harley-Davidson, Titanic, any of the Boeings really, and cardinal numbers. It's not really used very often, but sometimes, like when you play a board game or anything like this, you will say, oh look, it's the 1 or the 4 or anything. So then you do say die 4, die 1, die 3, die 5, and it's always feminine. Now we come to lots of nouns with various endings. For example, those end in heit, H-E-I-T. Examples could be Anwesenheit, Blindheit, Blödheit, Dummheit, Dunkelheit, Faulheit, Freiheit, Gesundheit, Kindheit, Klarheit, Krankheit, Mehrheit, Schönheit, Unbeschwertheit, Weisheit, Zufriedenheit. Nouns ending in IE, which is often the English equivalent to the Y ending. Akademie, Anarchie, Astrologie, Batterie, Bigamie, Chemie, Demokratie, Drogerie, Energie, Fantasie, Fotokopie, Galerie, Geographie, Industrie, Ironie, Komödie, Linie, Regie, Serie. All those are feminine. Nouns ending in IK. Botanik, Diagnostik, Erotik, Fabrik, Grafik, Hektik, Informatik, Klinik, Kritik, Mosaik, Musik, Panik, Physik, Politik, Republik. And yet, when I did do my research, I actually found one word which ends in IK, but it isn't feminine, and that's aspik. And to make it even more complicated, the Germans usually use the masculine, saying der aspik, and then I found out in Austria they very often use das. But if you don't like it, then you don't have to worry about it anyway. I don't. Nouns ending in keit. Abhängigkeit, Ähnlichkeit, Behutsamkeit, Ehrlichkeit, Erfolglosigkeit, Ewigkeit, Flüssigkeit, Freundlichkeit, Gemütlichkeit, Geschwindigkeit, Kleinigkeit, Kostbarkeit, Merkwürdigkeit, Möglichkeit, Ratlosigkeit, Sauberkeit, Schnelligkeit, Schwierigkeit, Traurigkeit, Wahrscheinlichkeit, Zärtlichkeit, Zugehörigkeit. A big list of words, and that's not all of them, but they are all feminine. Nouns ending in Schaft. Bereitschaft, Botschaft, Einsatzbereitschaft, Erbschaft, Freundschaft, Gesellschaft, Herrschaft, Hilfsbereitschaft, Kundschaft, Landschaft, Mannschaft, Meisterschaft, Ortschaft, Wirtschaft, Wissenschaft. Even if you don't know what some of these words are, if they end in Schaft, you know that they are feminine. Nouns ending in tät, T-A umlaut T. Brutalität, Elastizität, Flexibilität, Formalität, Identität, Kapazität, Kreativität, Loyalität, Mentalität, Normalität, Produktivität, Qualität, Rarität, Realität, Spezialität, Universität. And again, it's often the equivalent to a Y ending in English. So any word in English that ends in a Y, you've got a pretty good guess that it's feminine in German. Nouns ending in ung, ung. Abbildung, Abteilung, Änderung, Abfertigung, Abfindung, Abrüstung, Babynahrung, Bedienung, Bedrohung, Behaupten, Beleidigung, Danksagung, Durchsuchung, Einschulung, Sammlung, Vertretung, Zeitung, and many more, and all those are feminine. A lot of foreign nouns can be feminine. Those that end in ade, for example. Ballade, Blockade, Fassade, Limonade, Marinade, Olympiade, Parade, Schokolade, Schublade, Wade. For nouns ending in age. Absage, Ansage, Blamage, Collage, Courage, Etage, Frage, Lage, Klage, Menage, Passage, Plage, Sabotage, Visage, Vorhersage, Zulage. So often they're even pronounced like French words, so it's a good guess that they would be for feminine as well. For nouns ending in ans. Ambulanz, Bilanz, Distanz, Eleganz, Irrelevanz, Relevanz, Toleranz. Now these have been taken from foreign words and therefore are feminine. There are some exceptions, like der Glanz, der Kranz, der Tanz, but those are not original foreign nouns. They haven't been taken from the English or French. Nouns ending in enz, enz. Abstinenz, Essenz, Existenz, Frequenz, Konferenz, Lizenz, Residenz, Tendenz, Turbulenz. Nouns ending in ette. Diskette, Kassette, Kette. Manschette, Marionette, Palette, Pinzette, Serviette, Toilette, Wette, Zigarette. And finally, nouns ending in ine, ine. Cousine, Kabine, Lawine, Limousine, Mandoline, Mine, Nektarine, Rosine, Ruine, Sardine, Turbine, Violine und Waschmaschine. But also nouns ending in ion. I have a big list here again. I'll read some of those to you. Adoption, Aggression, Aktion, Depression, Detonation, Dokumentation, Immigration, Fraktion, Interpretation, Mission, Nation, Option, Position, Version, Vision. You've noticed something? They all sound very similar to English words. So again, that's nice and easy to remember. And nouns ending in ur. Agentur, Akupunktur, Diktatur, Figur, Frisur, Garnitur, Konjunktur, Kultur, Literatur, Prozedur, Reparatur, Schnur, Spur, Temperatur, Tinktur, Zensur. In the next video, we look at the ones which are usually feminine. In this video, we look at the nouns which are usually feminine. Most nouns ending in E are feminine, and there is a huge list of words. My PDF mentions quite a few. I'll name a few now. Die Apotheke, Bitte, Dame, Decke, Ecke, Ehe, Ente, Falle, Frage, Pfeile, Grenze, Gurke, Masse, Seuche, Sprache, Treppe, and loads more, and they all are feminine. Some exceptions though: der Affe, das Auge, der Buchstabe, das Ensemble, das Gemüse, der Junge, der Käse, and lots more as well. So be careful with that. Also beware of nouns which describe people. The word for the German is der Deutsche if it's a man, and die Deutsche if it's a woman. And there are a few of those words where just the gender changes it also, whether you're talking about the man or the woman. Also, lots of plural nouns end in E. Again, remember, at the moment we're only talking about singular words. So if it ends in E, it is most likely feminine. If it's plural, then of course it's completely different. Words ending in I. Again, there's a list not as big as the words ending in E one, but Abtei, Bäckerei, Bücherei, Druckerei, Malerei, Schweinerei, Ziegerei, just to mention a few. Drei also. Now, if you remember last video, numbers, if you're talking about the one or the three, are always feminine. So drei is feminine because of those two reasons. A, it's a number, and B, because it ends in EI. Most foreign nouns ending in isse, itis und ive. Die Hornisse, Kulisse, Melisse, Narzisse. Narzisse, there is another word for it, for daffodil, which is Osterglocke, literally translated Easter bell. And that's also feminine because Glocke ends in E and is one of those words which is feminine. Arthritis, gastritis, alternative, initiative, so there are a few of those foreign nouns and they are usually feminine. And most types of flowers and trees. Die Birke, Buche, Chrysantheme, Eiche, Fichte, Lilie, Linde, Magnolie, Narzisse, Nelke, Osterglocke, Rose, Tanne. Did you notice something? They all ended in E. And therefore, again, they're feminine for two reasons. A, because they belong to the category E and they are feminine, and B, because they're flowers and trees. Some other ones there as well. Die Primel is also feminine. Not feminine are der Ahorn, der Flieder, das Gänseblümchen, der Lavendel, das Veilchen. Another word which isn't feminine is the word for tree, which is Baum, and that's masculine, der Baum. So if you come across a tree which is called the, whatever the word is, tree, then that would end in Baum, and that would also make it masculine. As an example, die Kirsche, which is a cherry, but a cherry tree is der Kirschbaum. And that concludes the video about nouns which are usually feminine. This video covers the nouns which are always neuter. And the most important rule and the easiest one to remember is nouns ending in chen and line. Now those endings actually mean something little. And the first one I'd like to mention here is das Mädchen. Now if you remember going back to the nouns which are always feminine, and I told you that all female nouns are feminine apart from the girl. Now you know why. It's not that the girl is neuter, it's because the noun ends in chen. That's why it's neuter. And it means a little woman. So das Blümchen is a little flower. Das Brötchen is a little bread roll. Das Brot is the bread, und Brötchen is a little bread. Das Eichhörnchen, Kaninchen, Meerschweinchen, those are all little animals. Other words would be Hähnchen, Häuschen. Now house is the house and Häuschen is the cottage. Paket is a parcel, Päckchen is a little parcel. Wurst is a sausage, Würstchen is a little sausage. So as soon as you've got the chen on there on the noun, it is neuter. Now again, especially beginners, you may come across words which end in chen, but they're not nouns. So therefore, then you wouldn't have the gender either. It is the nouns, if they end in chen, they are neuter. And the same goes for line. Das Fräulein, das Büchlein. Other words could be das Männlein, das Bächlein. Again, they're little items. Büchlein is a little book. Fräulein is the word for miss. That isn't really used in Germany anymore unless you're talking to a little girl and you want to make her feel grown up. Otherwise it's not used, but you will still find it in books, I guess, so it's still good to know that Fräulein is also neuter. Names of hotels, cafes, theatres, and also colours. Now hotels, cafes and theatres is nice and easy to remember because hotel is also neuter. Das Hotel, das Café und das Theater. And if you give them the names, quite often we then don't bother with the word hotel. Yeah, so das Hilton, everybody knows it means das Hotel Hilton or das Hilton Hotel. So that's why they're all neuter. And colours, if you wanted to say something, it's, oh, look at that red or that green, then that would be das Rot, das Grün, das Gelb. And also infinitives used as nouns. Now those are verbs. Normally you see them as verbs. Essen is to eat, rauchen, to smoke, singen, to drink. But the eating, or sometimes the meal, the smoking, the singing, all those as a noun are also always neuter. So those are nice and easy rules to remember. And then the next video covers those which are usually neuter, but not always. So this video covers the nouns which are usually neuter. Nouns beginning with GE. Now when you look on the PDF, you'll see quite a big list of nouns beginning with GE, which are always neuter. Geäst, Gebäck, Gebäude, Gebirge, Gebiss, Geld, Gemüse, Genick, Gerät, and it just carries on. And yet the list of exceptions, der Gebrauch, die Gebühr, die Geburt, der Gedanke, die Geduld, die Gefahr, der Gefallen, is just as big. But there's one little tip. Those which are usually neuter are collective nouns, which means they're describing a group of objects. The ones I've got in the slide, for example. Das Gebäck. Now, one biscuit is das Plätzchen, but das Gebäck means there's several biscuits, possibly cakes, things you would offer in the afternoon, maybe with your tea or coffee. Das Gebirge. Not one mountain, but several mountains together. Das Gemüse. The vegetables. Now that picture shows one harvest from the allotment. It's not one particular vegetable, but lots of them together. Das Geschirr. That's your cups and plates. Das Gesetz, the law, consisting out of several individual laws. Das Gewürz, the seasoning. So if the noun begins with GE and it describes a group of objects, then you can safely say it's neuter. If it doesn't, then it may not. Nouns ending in nis. Das Ärgernis, Bekenntnis, Erlebnis, Gedächtnis, Gefängnis, Geheimnis, Versäumnis, Zeugnis. But there are exceptions like die Erlaubnis, die Erkenntnis, die Finsternis. Nouns ending in ing. And when you hear them, you realize that you probably know all of them because they're usually English words. Das Bowling, boxing, doping, dressing, meeting, multitasking, networking, rating, recycling, training. Exception der Pudding, der Ring. Nouns ending in ment. Das Argument, Dokument, Element, Experiment, Instrument, Medikament, Sortiment, Supplement, Temperament, but, der Moment, der Zement. Nouns ending in or tum. Das Album, Altertum, Aquarium, Besitztum, Christentum, Datum, Eigentum, and there are lots more. Exceptions could be der Irrtum, der Reichtum. Nouns ending in o. Das Auto, Bistro, Büro, Cello, Foto, Indigo, Casino, Kilo, Kino, Klo, Konto, Radio, Vetto, Video. But it is die Avocado, der Cappuccino, die Disco, der Euro, der Tango. Now nouns like disco, demo, mayo are feminine because they're actually short versions of die Diskothek, die Demonstration, die Mayonnaise. Also nouns ending in ma, as in das Aroma, Asthma, Dilemma, Drama, Dogma, Klima, Komma, Thema, but we have die Firma, die Oma. Most metals, Aluminium, Blei, Cadmium, Chrom, Gold, Helium, Kupfer, Messing, Silber, Zink, Zinn, but we have die Bronze. Also those that end in Stoff, because Stoff is der, are always masculine. Der Sauerstoff, which is oxygen, der Kohlenstoff, carbon. Fractions, they're usually neuter, except for die Hälfte. But otherwise, das Drittel, das Viertel, Fünftel, Sechstel, Zehntel. Geographic place names. Now most countries are neuter, but they're used without the gender. We don't normally talk about the Germany, das Deutschland, or the England. But if you did, it would have to be neuter. There are a couple of exceptions, and in those countries we do use the gender. So we have der Irak, der Iran, die Schweiz und die Türkei. And young animals and people. Das Baby, das Küken. Also das Junge. Now that means it's a young animal. If you remember, der Junge was an exception on the E words, which is masculine and it's the boy. And of course, we already had words ending in chen. And a lot of animals also end in chen. Kätzchen, which is your kitten. Entchen, your little duck. Hündchen, your puppy. So there you have a few nouns which are usually neuter, but unfortunately not always. Compound nouns. Compound nouns are words formed of two or more nouns together. In English, they are usually written in two or more words, but in German, they're written as one. So what happens to the gender of those words, especially if those two words have different gender? Well, it's the last noun that determines the gender. So if you see a word that consists of two or more nouns, have a look at the last one to find out what the gender is. Let me give you some examples. Der Spiegel, the mirror, das Ei, the egg, and that gives you a mirror egg. Well, no, a fried egg. But a fried egg in German is called Spiegelei, and because it ends in Ei, which is das, it's das Spiegelei. Die Couch, the sofa, der Tisch, the table. Put those two together and you end up with der Couchtisch, the coffee table. Die Blume, the flower, der Topf, the pot, and the flower pot is der Blumentopf because it ends in Topf. Der Tee. Now in Germany you sometimes get your tea in a glass. So if I add the word das Glas, I end up with das Teeglas. But if we're adding the word Tasse for cup, then we have der Tee und die Tasse, and that gives you die Teetasse. And that shows nicely that it is not the first word that gives you the gender. So it's not tea, it's the last one. So it's das Teeglas, but die Teetasse. So basically you add the two nouns together, sometimes more, and the gender is the one of the last noun. But, you knew there would be a but, didn't you? Some nouns need to be linked with an E, EN, ES, N or S. Others may lose some letters. Now when we're writing a word together as one, it needs to sound like one word when we're saying it. Now if I'd added die Blume and the word der Topf and set that as one word, it would sound like this. Der Blumentopf. That doesn't sound very good. Adding the N in there means I can say it as one word. Der Blumentopf. Some words like die Haltestelle und der Kochtopf. The first part is actually a verb that's been turned into noun. Would have been halten und kochen. Again, try and say that as one word. Die Haltenstelle, der Kochentopf. Again, it doesn't sound very good, but if we get rid of the EN or the N, we have die Haltestelle, der Kochtopf. But most of the time you see words added with an S, like die Geburtstagskarte. Now that actually has three nouns in there. Die Geburt, der Tag, die Karte. If I set that as one word without the S, it would be die Geburt, Tag, Karte. Say it with the S in it, die Geburtstagskarte. And I've added two more words just to show you again that it is not the first word, because those last three words all start with Geburt and Tag. Actually, they start with Geburtstag. But then we have Karte, which is die, Kuchen, which is der, so it's der Geburtstagskuchen, und Geschenk, which is das Geburtstagsgeschenk. So from now on, if you can see a really long word, break it up into individual words. Remember the S may not be part of the word, and you probably can work out what the word is and what the gender is. Sometimes I get asked by my students, well, I hope it's in jest, what happens to new nouns? Is there somebody in Germany who sits in his office and all he does is look at these new words and then decides, We haven't had many masculine words lately. This new word will be der. Or this one will be D, because we haven't seen many D words lately either. Well, luckily it doesn't work like that. So how does it work? Let me give you some examples. If a new word comes up and it replaces an old word, often it takes on the gender of that word. The helicopter, for example. Now, helicopter, there was a nice German word called Hubschrauber. But nowadays, quite often people call it helicopter as well. Now, in this case, actually, we have two rules here. Both words end in ER, which makes it nice and easy. That makes them der. But because Hubschrauber is der, therefore helicopter is also der. The same goes for computer. It used to be called der Rechner, but I don't think anybody calls it that anymore. Both end in ER, but also der Rechner, so therefore der computer replaces that word and it's also der. Slightly different about the statement. One word for a statement in German is die Erklärung. That's feminine because it ends in ung. But statement, if you remember, ends in ment, and that makes it a neuter word. So therefore, although statement replaces the word Erklärung, it is das because it ends in ment. Then again, sometimes there are some strange ones. As an example, the word for blog. When the word blog came about, in the beginning it was described as an online diary. Diary is Tagebuch, so therefore a blog was online Tagebuch. And because Buch is neuter, it was das Online-Tagebuch. Now, although the Germans have got well, you've seen all these long words, but we're just as lazy as everybody else, and we don't really want to talk about the Online-Tagebuch when the word blog is already there and is so much shorter. So, we've taken on the word blog, but what is it? It replaces Online-Tagebuch, therefore it should be das. And that's how it ended up in the dictionary, das Blog. But a lot of people, me including, didn't like it. When I started writing about blog, it didn't flow right, and I thought it should be der Blog. And gradually I noticed that people were actually using der Blog. I saw it written online. And I checked and I found that the dictionary now says it's das Blog, but der Blog is also used and it is officially accepted. It's a bit like peer pressure really, isn't it? Dictionary says das, we all use der, and it works. Well, sometimes anyway. I saw a list of nationalities not so long ago. It was a huge list of all the nationalities in German with the names for the people who live in these countries, and the male version and the female version. There were some gaps in it, and I noticed they were there because some newly formed countries, their names just didn't allow for the easy ER or ERIN form like we have with Engländer for the man, Engländerin for the woman, Amerikaner for the man, Amerikanerin for the woman. So they've left it as a gap. And there was a little asterisk at the bottom, and it told me that it will stay as a gap until a word has established. So I guess if that country is in the news a lot, then journalists will start talking about the people who live there, and they will choose a word. And whichever one sounds the nicest, that's the one that they will use in the end. And that shows nicely really how language changes and how things evolve and how peer pressure sometimes gets a say as well. And that makes it really interesting, don't you think?